have 3 of the 5 candidates who are vying for the position of chair and vice chair. We start with a profile of each of them, starting with Jennifer Shamala. Let's see if we can bring that. Here she is. We're also going to bring a bit of a profile on the screens. LSK Council member, vice chair contender at LSK elections, advocate of the High Court of Kenya. There's a few other details of her profile on your screens, and we're going to be asking a few questions in just a few moments. Next up, we have another one of the candidates who's vying for the position of chair of the Law Society of Kenya, and that's Alan Gishui. Let's see if we can... Nope, that's Agri Mwamu. Okay, let's start with him, and let's see if we can bring up a profile, a few highlights of his career. Those are not forthcoming at the moment. I don't know whether we can move on to... All right, I'm told they're coming up. There we have them. LSK Council member, chair contender at LSK elections, immediate former... Yeah, okay, let's see if we can move on to a few other highlights. And then we're going to be speaking to our final guest this evening, who is Alan Gishui. He is also vying for the chair, the position of chair at the Law Society of Kenya. And there's a few highlights. Okay, so gentlemen and ladies, thank you so much for joining us. Like we said, there were supposed to be 5, but the 3 of them were the ones who were able to make it. And maybe off the bat, I should start by asking Jennifer why she's not vying for the chair position when we have the gentleman here. Is it not time that we have another woman at home?
First of all, Janet, thank you so much for convening this show and for us to be able to be here at Citizen. I first got elected to council in the year 2014. And the moment I was elected to council, I knew I was going to run to become president of the Law Society of Kenya. Unfortunately, my father passed away in December of 2014. He was a council member. He was on the council that ushered in multi-party democracy into this country. And you know what it's like to get over the death. We buried him in December, and it was after, and the whole year, a better part of the year was spent grieving and also, you know, just coping. And had that not happened, I would definitely be on the ballot. If I am elected as vice president of the Law Society of Kenya, I will definitely be on the ballot for president of the Law Society of Kenya.
So to look out for. Condolences for that. All right, so why are you then vying? Perhaps I could ask for this position. If I can start with you, Mr. Mwamu, why is this so important for you?
The issue is why it's not important for me. One of the reasons why I'm running for the presidency of the Law Society of Kenya, because I think that at this particular moment in the history of the Law Society requires a figure that can unite our members. I think that this particular time, because of one reason or the other, we are divided, and I think I have the necessary experience to bring our members together. The other thing that I want to do is that one of the things that I did as the president of the East African Law Society was to really open up the practice of law across the region, and I think that I want to open up the region for the Kenyan lawyers to go and practice across the East African region.
Okay, and yourself, Alan, why are you vying?
Well, I've been an active member of the Law Society for the last 15 years, actively participating in a lot of reform in terms of practice directions that have made life easier for the practice of law, amendments to the Civil Procedure Code of Appeal rules, Advocates Remuneration Order, and I feel it's time that we now emphasize and practice matters in welfare issues for the lawyers, which has, in my view, taken a backseat over the years. And because of my experience in that, I think I offer the best candidature for this. For this particular.
I want to go into what's currently playing out on our news. Of course, concerning the issues around the allegations towards Justice Tunoi. A lot of Kenyans right now are feeling frustrated, disappointed in the justice system. They don't really have faith in it anymore. And it's not just the judges, lawyers as well are said to be implicated in all of these allegations. What are the comments coming from you about this, and how you think you can sort of ensure Kenyans that you want to do something to make them feel confident about the system? Again, Jennifer, if you can very briefly answer that before I give them a chance.
I think it's crucial for us to appreciate the fact that within the three arms of government, one of the most crucial and the one that is perceived as not biased is the judiciary. And that's why it's called the Temple of Justice. When a nation begins to feel that they cannot approach a temple of justice and get justice, then we will have a situation which can easily lead to a breakdown of society. So that's a very, and we can understand the despondency within the nation when they feel that, you know, it has come to this, when we feel that we can no longer trust the judges. Because if you look at the executive arm, it would be biased by nature because it's through an election process that they get there. The legislature is the same way. We don't expect that of the judiciary. Yes.
Okay. Your thoughts on that, and perhaps even some people thinking these elections that are coming up, who's to say that they'll be free and fair? Who's to say that the outcome is going to improve the situation in the country? Maybe you can answer that.
I think that personally I share in the frustration of the Kenyans, because if you remember 2007, one of the reasons why the country went through what it went through was because the opposition at that particular time said that they will not go to the courts. One of the reasons why they didn't want to go to courts because there was a perception that the courts were compromised, they were not going to give a verdict that was going to be fair. And this is coming when we are only 2 years to the general election. And I think that it is something that the Judicial Service Commission must deal with decisively. I think that the JSC has gone the right way by appointing a committee to look into this. But above all else, I think even as the investigations are being done, I think that due process will be followed so that nobody complains about witch hunt. We do not want to go back to those days of Ringera, where people sometimes were condemned and hard. But, at the end of the day, I think corruption must be fought from all corners in the judiciary.
Even though, Alan, even though we have the committee probing these allegations, is there part of you that thinks maybe it's too late? Maybe right now there's no chance that Kenyans are going to believe in the justice system again, or do you still think there's a chance at redemption for the system and for Kenyans to have faith in it again?
Oh, I mean, as a lawyer, I'm trained that evaluate the facts first. Don't speculate on no matter how outrageous the accusations could be. And also, every person is deemed innocent until proven guilty. And I have absolute respect for the Constitution and due process of the law. And we shouldn't crucify any judge or advocate merely because of some wild speculations or allegations out there. Let's evaluate the facts first before condemning anyone. That's what I'd say. Let's be patient. Let the natural course of justice take its course.
I think there's a clip I want to play, and I don't know if my director can bring that up. And this is something that the CJ, the Chief Justice, had said. Let's see if we can play that clip and get some reactions from our guests tonight.
Can you imagine a judge bribing another judge so that they can vote for them? And it's very, very painful.
There we have it, short and sweet. Again, around the bribery allegations. And the fact that people still feel like lawyers, in fact, these are some of the views and sentiments that were coming on SMS, are hard to trust. They take money from poor Kenyans. They don't they don't have due diligence in terms of the service delivered to Kenyans. They feel like nowadays lawyers are practicing for the money as opposed to the passion. How then can you defend the practice of law in Kenya?
You know, Janet, we are all part of society, and you can't have that. You cannot say that one particular part of society may be better than the other. Indeed, it is the noble profession, and we are looked up to. It doesn't mean that they aren't rotten eggs. If they weren't, then we would be living in the Garden of Eden. Yes, and the due diligence must also be done by the clients. Yes, when they go to seek out lawyers. You find people saying that they went to a lawyer and he didn't have a practicing certificate. The Law Society of Kenya has a search engine. It's very simple. You can check on your phone, find an advocate, slot in their name, and they will, the name comes up as to if they have a practicing certificate. This business of saying that lawyers collude with judges is also very unfair on the part of lawyers. It's almost like they're dragging in lawyers into and blaming the corruption in the judiciary. Ultimately, the person who's supposed to dispense justice is not the lawyer, But the judge.
But the judge. Fair enough, but is that not to say that there's an issue with rogue lawyers in the country? Isn't there an issue with rogue lawyers in the country?
I think there may be an issue, but you see, one of the things that we have as a Law Society of Kenya is that we have a disciplinary tribunal. And I think that our disciplinary tribunal has been functioning very well. A number of complaints are forwarded to the disciplinary tribunal. A number of lawyers are struck out. A number of lawyers are suspended. So I think the Law Society of Kenya has a mechanism of dealing with the rogue lawyers. And one of the things that I want to add is that there are many lawyers out there who wake up very early in the morning, go to their offices at 5 and are working very hard. So it will also not be right to generalize and say that all lawyers are rogues. I remember Montesquieu say that why don't kill all the lawyers. I think lawyers have been very unpopular for centuries. But I think that it will not be right. We may have one or two people who are not doing the right thing, but most lawyers are very hardworking and diligently at their work.
All right, Agra and Jennifer, you've commented on that. Alan, your comments on that, and also moving forward, say for instance, if you are elected, how would you want to change the way rogue lawyers are disciplined?
First of all, let me comment on that clip by the Chief Justice when he said that, can you imagine one judge bribing another to elect? It's a very interesting statement, because if there's that proof, why haven't we had heads rolling? I would imagine that that particular judge or judge would be named, because, you see, it's one thing to condemn an individual, and then you just condemn the entire society as a class. It's the same thing as us being called rogue lawyers. We have over 7,000 who take out practicing certificates. In total, we have about 13,000 lawyers in Kenya. But the percentage who may be deemed as rogue, quote unquote, are probably 0.1% when you look at the figures. So it's across every profession, first and foremost. The disciplinary tribunal, as my brother James has rightly pointed out, has set out mechanisms to discipline rogue lawyers, and the process is pretty fast in itself. You can get your judgment quickly executed, you can be struck off, and you can recover the money from that rogue lawyer. But the disciplinary tribunal mechanisms are in place. The only way, of course, is to strengthen the policing mechanism. So if I am elected as the president of the Law Society, then one of the things that we need to do is instill discipline amongst members, and probably even have an inspector to ensure that members practice the profession according to the rules and standards we have. All
right, so they are in place. Are they accessible? You're saying that these mechanisms are in place, but a lot of people feel like, well, they're not as accessible or don't work as fast as they should.
No, they are very accessible. They are very accessible. In fact, apart from the disciplinary committee, we have the complaints commission. That is funded by the government, and anybody can walk into that particular office and make a complaint against an advocate. So I don't think that they are not accessible. And apart from that, in the branches, we have branch leaders who you can walk into their offices and inquire about issues.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to move on to another clip, and we're just kind of bringing out some of the hard issues before we go play by play all of you to get your vision if you were elected. The issue of the AGM that turned messy. Let's take a look at the clip and then talk a little bit about it. That was the last LSK AGM around the issue of the arbitration center. Jennifer, you were there.
Yes, I was. You saw it clearly. I was there. Yes.
It's perhaps clips like those that have made people ask, what has become of the LSK and the pride and dignity? But could you take us through, you know, what was happening and whether or not that should also affect people's views on the LSK and the members of the LSK?
You know, it was a very low point in my life, and a very embarrassing point, because it was a Saturday and I was flying out on Sunday, and a friend came up to me and was laughing almost mockingly because they had seen those clips. And I think that what happened was a section of people decided that they they had stopped talking to one another for whatever reasons. I'm not blaming them for it, but there had been a breakdown. You know, it had become polarized. The arbitration issue had become so polarized and so divisive, and that they felt, just like I said, when people feel that they can't get justice, they descend into that sort of behavior, and they felt that it had reached to a point where nobody's going to listen to them. Yeah.
Okay, so that was it. But it shouldn't really, it doesn't say, it doesn't really say much about the LSK in the sense that people shouldn't think that's what they're about.
I don't think that you can judge LSK by that particular incident. I think it was an extremely unfortunate incident. But to address, you know, then you're judging everybody based on one particular incident, and all members. There were hardly more than, I can't recall how many members there were, but there were definitely not 7,000 members were sitting at that AGM.
Okay.
Yes.
Again, now moving on to the roles, and still with you, in times of past leadership at the LSK, the vice chair is normally pretty much in the background, some would say. So what specific roles?
No, absolutely not. The vice chair is a part and parcel of the council, works closely with the president and with all council members, heads various committees, especially the Staff and Finance Committee, which is a crucial committee. And so there is no member of council that is in the background. Now, you may have a situation, whereas again, because we're talking about human beings, you will have a majority view being imposed perhaps, and other people may have a minority view. But there's no member who's left out in the background. No.
All right. We have one or two questions for some of you, and maybe if we can bring up a graphic that's showing those who, the past. There we have it. A timeline of the various chairpersons in the past, and we can only see one name there of a woman. Yes, Rachel Omamo. And I think I had already asked you in the beginning whether or not you think it's time. Maybe I should ask the gentleman how you feel about that, whether you think it's perhaps time that soon we see a woman as the president.
Yeah, I think that will be welcome. And we are a very democratic society as the Law Society of Kenya. But you will also say the same thing of America, that right now you have Hillary Clinton running, and we hope that she's going to be president. We have had Rachel Omamo being the president, now the defense minister, and I hope that Jennifer, when she becomes the vice president, will proceed to become the president of the Law Society of Kenya. We will very much welcome.
Okay, you welcome that. Okay, we have to wind up, but very quickly, maybe I could start with you as we go around. What's the one thing, and I think you may have touched on it, but if you got into office, what is the one thing you'd want to change at the LSK to ensure the betterment of the Kenyan society? Let me start with you.
I think just right from what you've seen in the clip, I think one of the things that I'll do more is to consult more and more. Consult our members before making a decision. Consult the branch leaders before making a decision. Because you see, we want a cohesive society. What happened in that particular AGM was very unfortunate. And for me, I will not want us to go to that particular event, but I will want to unite all the members. That is the only way that you can bring along a strong society, by uniting all our members, understanding them, listening to them, and moving together with them.
Okay, thank you for that. The one thing you'd want to change if you were elected?
Of course, the first thing is to heal the society. I'm a firm believer of ADR, dialogue, having been the head of the subcommittee that drafted Kenya's first court-mandated mediation rules that are now coming into force this year. Ensure that we have greater member participation. Ensure that practice matters and welfare issues of the members come to the fore, because that's one thing that's really been neglected. And based on the issues at hand, I have a master plan of how we can achieve that. And most importantly is to get our members to work together as a united society, because there are brilliant ideas out there that I listen to every day, and I want us to harness that collective energy to move forward
and be able to implement. Okay, thank you for that. And finally, Jennifer.
Mine is not so much to change, but to empower, because it's part and parcel of our vision is to empower our membership. And I would really want to do it through business process outsourcing, in which they do it in the United Kingdom, and they do it in America, and it's outsourced. Legal work is outsourced to India and to the Philippines and to South Africa. So once we can pass the Data Protection Act, we will have a wider market in which our membership can actually to operate in, like the East African community and further across the world as well.
All right. Yes. Well, thank you all so much. All the best.
Thank you.
Ahead of the 25th of February, we'll be watching and hopefully have one of you or some of you back here for another interview. You're watching The Big Question. We'll be right back to sample some of your comments after this break.